If you have a child with autism or if you work with children with autism, this episode is for you. I am going to share with you 3 key strategies for children who are dysregulated. So I get this email the most often out of all, and that is, what should I do? I'm working with a child who is highly dysregulated. They are biting, they are chewing, they are screaming, they are crying. What should I do? I would be a millionaire if I had $1 for every email I received from speech pathologists asking for advice for children who are dysregulated. I think this is the perfect episode today to do because I have an email currently that I have not responded to. It's been on my mind. So let's discuss. The first thing I want to talk about is when I get these emails, I don't know this child, I don't know this situation. I really can't give specific advice. But what I'm going to share with you today is generally highly effective with children with autism. And that's because it's estimated that over 90% of children with autism have sensory issues. Now, these sensory issues are problematic because when your senses are not working right, that sends a message to tell your brain that you are not safe. Your senses, the purpose is to keep you safe. So if you have sensory issues and you don't feel safe, you're probably going to be in that fight, flight, freeze brain, right? That's how it manifests behaviorally is in a child running away, escaping, or in a child crying or screaming or engaging in injurious behaviors. This is fight, flight, freeze, amygdala, survival brain. So what we want to do is we want to prevent them in the first place. That's 99.99% of our energy to getting into that fight, flight, freeze state of mind. We want them to be into a higher level thinking brain. A lot of times people say it's the prefrontal lobe brain, but really the brain doesn't work in this localized manner. It works in a very integrated manner. But we want them to be working in this higher order thinking brain. And the way the brain works is like a light switch. So you're either in fight, flight, freeze brain, or you're in higher order thinking brain. You can't be in the same simultaneously. So when they look at people that are feeling bittersweet, so they're graduating for college and they feel like so happy because now they get to go on to their professions, but then they feel so sad because they're going to miss all of their friends. They have this bittersweet feeling in which is that fight, flight, freeze brain, sad, sad, sad. Oh my gosh, I'm losing my friends. And then there's that higher level brain. Oh my goodness, I'm going to make 10 times more money and I'm going to have independence and freedom and get to do what I always loved. What happens when they look at the brain scans is it works like this light switch that goes really, really, really quickly back and forth. Higher level brain, amygdala brain, higher level brain, amygdala brain. That is what happens when you're feeling bittersweet, when you want to like laugh and cry at the same time because you're feeling joy and you're feeling grief or sadness at the same time. It's really your brain is going back and forth really, really rapidly, but it's not feeling the same emotions at the same time. So what we want to do is we want to get these children out of the amygdala brain and we want to get them into the higher level thinking brain. So let's talk about how we can do that. That's despite the fact they're dealing with these sensory issues in which they don't feel safe because their senses are a little bit out of whack. We've all been there before, like you're super, super hungry and you're just like irritable and like, rah, and you're kind of going off on people over little issues because you don't feel safe. Like your basic needs aren't being met or you're sleep deprived or you're just like in pain and you're just feeling like highly irritable, like and then you're just like, I'm sorry I'm going off of you, I just like I have this major migraine right now. It's an over response. So we all get dysregulated when we feel like on a physical level that our senses are out of whack and it puts us in that fight, flight, freeze survival brain. What do we want to do to prevent this fight, flight, freeze survival brain? I'm going to give you 3 strategies today that are highly effective as a therapist. The first strategy, of course, is prevention is key. 99.99% of our energy is going to want to be on how do I prevent this child with sensory issues from being dysregulated so that they're in that higher level thinking brain. And what you're going to want to do is find out what is the child's favorite toys, favorite songs, favorite activities, and all of that information before you even meet the child. And you want to arrive and bring your flowers with those favorite things because favorite is familiar. And when you're familiar with something, that makes you feel safe. So it's evolutionary. When you're familiar in the path you're going on, then you're feeling safe. That means you're not going to get lost, and the lions and the bears aren't going to eat you. You're doing what's familiar. What's familiar is safe. You always want to find that out before working with the child. I ask the parents and I ask the teachers, okay, so what are their favorite things? What are their favorite songs? I need to know that. That's crucially important. So you're going to find that out. And if you want my parent input form and you haven't had that yet, it's totally free. Just go to KellyVess.com/parent input form. And that's like one word, ParentInputForm. So KellyVess.com/parent input form. And you can have the parent input form that I use. It's a fabulous form. I think it's by far the best out there. So go and see for yourself and see if you agree. That's totally free to you. In that form, you're going to find out what all of the child's favorite things are. You're going to find out what the child's temperament is. You're going to find out what the child's attention is. You're going to find out all of these things so that you can set up the environment and you can set up the activities for success so that the child is going to be engaged, the child's going to feel safe and secure, the child's going to be in a higher level brain. What we're going to want to do is incorporate those interests. So, for instance, I have a child right now who has transition difficulties. The child loves the ABC song. So, when I see the child, I sing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, won't you come with me? H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, won't you come with me? So, I'm just kind of singing what's familiar to the child because transitions are so difficult as we walk from point A to point B. We could be transitioning from a center to another center. We could be going to speech, but it really helps to know, like, okay, this is his favorite thing. This is what he's familiar with. Transitions, they're very challenging for him. He doesn't know where he's going. He's going to go into the fight, flight, freeze brain. I want to prevent that. I want him to feel safe and secure. I'm going to sing ABC song. That was strategy number one. Let's jump into strategy number two. Strategy number two, be a therapist thermostat. And what I mean by that is I want you to respond to the child when it comes to whether your energy level is going to go up or whether your energy level is going to go down. So some children are hyper aroused. And if they're hyper aroused, you're going to be like a thermostat that reads the temperature in the room. It says, whoa, 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 it's getting too hot in here. We're going to cool it down. We're going to calm down. My energy is going to come down. I'm going to talk more slowly. I'm going to move more slowly. I'm going to turn my volume down because this child is hyper aroused. I'm going to be like a thermostat in a room that the temperature of the child, and then I'm going to respond to cool them to the ideal temperature that the child's going to feel safe and secure at. Sometimes that's what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into calming activities. You're going to want to calm your energy level down, speak at a slower pace, and you're going to want to speak at a lower volume. Other times, the child is hypo-aroused, where the child is just kind of seems like a land of listless, needs and is not engaged and needs you to expend more energy to up the energy level, to up the expression, to up the volume, to up the movements. So you're just turning that thermostat up because the child's kind of too cool, right? It's kind of like that. If you're too cool, the lion's gonna come and attack you, right? So we don't want to be too cool either. We gotta like turn up the heat a little bit. So in therapy, just always sensitively responding and saying, okay, this is a kiddo where I'm going to have to kind of slow it down, not be so animated, just kind of go through the back door. Don't be so big on like being in the child's face. Give the child some space and slowly enter interactions with the child. Sometimes you got to be like, I've got to make myself bigger. I've got to make myself louder. I've got to make exaggerate the facial expressions because there's this layer of ice that I have to kind of cut through of sensory distraction. And I have to break through that like the Kool-Aid man. So if you know the Kool-Aid man, you know, I know from the 70s, they would like jump through the wall, the Kool-Aid man would, right? For some kiddos that are really hypo aroused, you got to be like the Kool-Aid man, like, Mom, I'm here, and really expend a lot of energy to turn the heat up, okay, as a thermostat. So be a therapist thermostat. This is important for me because I have ADHD. I'm a very high energy person. And there's been times I always have to know myself and know what is my norm. And what I normally would move to is to be very animated, very energetic. And that works really well with children with ADHD like myself. They're like, she's cool. She's interesting. She has my attention. But for children who are highly sensitive, this is like, whoa, this is overkill. You need to turn that volume down. It is too hot in here. You really have to be like a thermostat. The way you behave has to be based on the interaction of the child you're working with, and whether they need you to either turn up the volume or turn down the volume will depend on how they are. So always be a therapist thermostat and always be very self-aware of yourself and what your go-to place is and how you run on that continuum. If your norm is to be very, very calm and very, slow moving and really, do you have to not go to your norm and kind of crank it up even though that's uncomfortable for you? Or do you have to crank it down even if that's not your natural state? So you just have to think about that. I know for myself, especially with children with sensitive temperaments that I've worked with, I've had to really been like, oh, okay, Kelly, restrain yourself, restrain your movements, restrain your voice, restrain the exaggerated expressions, slowly approach the child. Just don't go right on in like Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. So you just always have to think about yourself and what your natural go-to way of interacting is and how you're going to have to change that depending on who you're working with. Strategy number 3 is to meet the child where they are, but to move toward task-oriented, goal-oriented activities. So I like task-oriented movement activities because they treat the whole child, but especially because they engage higher order thinking. Now, remember what I told you about the light switch. You can't be in a higher order thinking brain at the same time as a fight, flight, freeze brain. They're incompatible. So when the child is engaging in a task-oriented movement activity in which they're solving a problem by using their mind and their body in an integrated manner, what happens is they have to switch out of the fight, flight, freeze brain. So they're out of that fight, flight, freeze brain because of the activity they're engaging in. Now, many of my students, when they come to me, they are not ready for the task-oriented movement activities. I meet them where they are. They like singing songs. They like finger plays. They might like some sensory activities. They might like the cause effect toys. I have a bin of like the best cause effect toys ever, and I hide them under a quilt. I need to take those out. A lot of my kiddos, and especially on day one, they are definitely like, okay, let's do some goal-oriented, multiple step, task-oriented movement activity. Not on day one. However, they are at the end of the year. And what the task-oriented movement activities do is they give me that next step that I can slowly intersperse into the cause-effect activities. So I meet the children where they are. If you're at the sensory stage, we might be going for a wagon ride and singing the wheels on the wagon go round and round, round and round, and using our augmentative communication device and commenting on all the neat things in the hallway. The clock in the hallway goes tick, tick, tock, tick, tick, tock. So we're doing all of these things because the child's in a sensory stage. I'm using their favorite song the wheels on the box. I'm using the rendition of it, of the wheels on the wagon go round and round. And we're talking about all the things that we see in the hallway. And the child's using their augmentative communication device to request go or sing, or they're going to, or talk about what they see and modeling what you like and what you don't like and different things in the hallway. That's at a sensory stage. Then we'll go to a cause effect stage after that, and maybe the child's doing puzzles and those kind of cause effect simple toys. Then after that, how do I get to the SIS activities where they're doing goal-oriented behaviors? Well, first of all, it's really important to get to that level. This is a level that's very difficult for children with autism is goal-oriented behaviors. And I think that is because it requires the cerebellum working with the prefrontal cortex in a really highly coordinated manner. And what we know from the research is that there's damage along these tracks that connect the prefrontal cortex with the cerebellum. So that makes goal-oriented behaviors or task-oriented movement activities very challenging. However, we can bridge them in from the cause-effect activities. What I like to do is we're doing those favorite cause-effect activities, and maybe I have my task-oriented movement activity. I'll just move it on a cubie chair, wherever they were supposed to go, about a foot away. And maybe they just take one turn. So we're doing their favorite things. We're doing the Old MacDonald puzzle, and I'm singing Old MacDonald, and they love the Melissa and Doug and how it makes the sounds of the different animals. But then I'm just like, okay, now let's go save the animal. Okay, now you go ahead and put the animal in the zoo. And maybe they're taking that sticker of a hippopotamus and they have a hippopotamus in their hand. And maybe they're just putting it right next to them and sticking the hippopotamus in the zoo. And they're dropping the hippopotamus into the zoo box, which is right next to them. That's where we start. Later on, that zoo's going to be across the room, and the sticker is going to be across the room where they're going to travel as the zookeeper and save those zoo animals and put them back in the zoo. But that's going to be across, that's called a wildlife habitat refuge center. A lot of people hate zoos. So they go ahead and they put it there, and then they come back and they check their checklist. But what I'm saying is maybe they just take one turn the first time. Maybe the zoo is just a foot away. There's always a start. But I will tell you this, a couple months from now, they're not interested in the cause effect activities anymore. They want to move. They want to go and save the animals. And they prefer those activities. And we do less and less and less of the cause effect activities. And then the quilt goes over the box. And we're just doing task-oriented movement activities now. And the funny thing about it is after break, some children were really dysregulated when they came back from the holiday break. And I was just like, well, we can do your favorite activity. I've got your vehicles here, your jar of vehicles. I know that it's been hard after being off for 2 weeks to come back to school, and this is your first day back. They don't want to do their favorite things. They want to do the task-oriented movement activities. What I find is that children that I work with, they want to feel safe and secure. But if they feel safe and secure, that's most important, and that's what these strategies are all about. Then they also want to show you what they're capable of. They want to show themselves what they're capable of. They want to be challenged. What I find with so many of our children, especially since we've given them robust communication systems from the beginning, is they'll say messages to me, like they'll type out messages like, I said blue, and they'll type it out in print. And they said blue a month ago when they picked up the blue crayon, and they haven't spoken since. These children, so many of them are locked in and they're so bright and they want to be challenged. They want to use their mind and their bodies in an integrated manner. And they don't want to be locked in. They want to show you what they can do. And that's what the task-oriented movement activities does. It shows them that they have agency, that if they want to accomplish something, that they can use their mind and they can use their bodies and they can independently accomplish that goal and take it to completion all by themselves. It is a moment in which they're saying, I'm in charge. I'm in charge of this activity. I am in charge and I am accomplishing goals by myself. I am doing this all by myself. There's a problem. I take action, I solve it, and I take it to completion. And that is huge. Why is that so important? Because the locus of control is internal. Who is in charge? The child is in charge. The child is the teacher. If the child believes in themselves, the sky is the limit. I always say, I don't care who it is on your caseload, I know what the most important goal is. It's the internal locus of control. It's that they know that they can accomplish anything if they work hard. And that's what the task-oriented movement activities offer. So the SIS membership, if you haven't tried it, now is the time. And the SIS membership is the task-oriented movement activities. Try for just a month, get all of the updated treatment targets in both speech and language, and it has the videos there that shows you this is how you cue these treatment targets. Give it a month, see what happens with your caseload. Now, like I told you, there's kiddos on your caseload, they're not ready yet for those activities. I emphasize yet. You meet them where they are, but put one turn of that activity in there and make it a modified. You can stay in your seat during this. You're just going to you're going to do Y instead of X for one turn. And later on, you can make it more complex. And later on, they're going to take more turns. You're setting them up for success. But I think it's funny that when they come back from break and I give them the option of this is your favorite thing. Do you want to do this or do you want to do this week's task-oriented movement activity, which is different every week? They want to do the task-oriented movement activity. They want to show themselves and they want to show you what they're capable of. It is huge. And I think it's also huge because a lot of people, they go from cause, effect, choice, and they want to go right into pretend play. And you're missing a step. Goal-oriented action. So goal-oriented action is something that precedes the pretend play in which you are able to say, I'm able to take objects and I'm able to use them for their functional use to achieve a goal. And then after that, we can pretend. But there's that important step that so many people don't address. And when you address that, you are going to treat the whole child, especially if the child has autism. And that is when you're going to come in the form of bread. And that's when you are going to see change across developmental domains. When the child is in charge of their learning, it's very exciting. When the child knows, I am the teacher now. I am accomplishing the goals. I'm the one who sees there's a problem. I'm the one who's making the plan. I'm the one who's taking action, and I'm the one who's checking it to completion. And I'm showing you that I can do hard things, and I can do hard things using my mind and my body independently. What I want you to do now is do what you do every single day. Roll up your sleeves and make the world a better place, one child at a time. You will always be first.